to this wonderful session. We shall look at the reciprocal. We shall look at significant figures. To start with reciprocal of a number means one of that number. If we have 2, the reciprocal of 2 will be 1 over 2. Why do we say 1 over 2? Because we very well know that when we have 2, it is the same as 2 over 1. Because any number divided by 1 is that very number. But when we are getting the reciprocal, the denominator becomes the numerator and the numerator changes into the denominator. That's why when we have 2 is the same as having 2 over 1. And therefore, if we are getting the reciprocal of that, that gives us 1 over 2. So the reciprocal of any whole number is 1 over that number. We also have the reciprocal of a fraction. For instance, the reciprocal of x over y. As we said earlier, that the numerator becomes the denominator and the denominator changes to a numerator. The same applies to when finding the reciprocal of a fraction. For our fraction, which is x over y, the reciprocal will be instead y over x. That is what we mean by reciprocal. We come to significant figures. Significant figures are classified as we shall see. Category number 1 are what we call the non-zero digits. When we talk about non-zero digits, we mean a number made of natural counting numbers. When I talk about natural counting numbers, those are numbers starting from 1 without a 0. For instance, if we have 235, in 235 we have 3 digits, and among those 3 digits we don't have a 0, so they are non-zero digits, and they are all significant figures. Then we have a 0 that is between non-zero digits. For instance, if we have 105, when you write 105, we shall write 105. But this 0 is between the non-zero digits. It is between 1 and 5. And therefore, when a 0 is between the non-zero digits, it is considered as a significant figure, implying that in writing 105 we have 3 significant figures, because we are considering 0 since it is between the non-zero digits. Category number 3, we are told that in a whole number, zeros after the last non-zero digit may or may not be significant. We may consider it or we may not consider it as significant. We want to see when do we consider it and when do we not consider it. For instance, we are given to write 7006 to one significant figure. So meaning that we are going to round off the 6 to the nearest thousands, which is almost 0. So that gives us 70,000. In writing 7,000, we are considering only 7 as the significant figure. The other zeros are not significant, and we call such zeros trailing zeros, the zeros that come last in every number. Those are trailing zeros. So here we are not considering them to be significant. Then still we can write the same number to two significant figures. So when we are writing that number to two significant figures, we shall now consider 1 0. So we add 1 0 to 7. You might wonder, when do I know that I'm having two significant figures, yet I'm having 3 zeros? Remember, we've said that the 0 after the last non-zero digit may or may not be considered significant. So in the first place we have not considered it, but since we are told to write to two significant figures, then we are considering the second 0, because there is no way you can write it to two significant figures without considering the 0. Still, we can write the same number to 3 significant figures by rounding off 6 to the nearest tens, which gives us 7010. But in this, you realize that we are not considering the last 0. We are considering 701, and even this 0 is considered because it is between 7 and 1. We've seen that. But the last 0 is not considered. So we can do the same for other figures. In the next example, we are told to express 2014 collected to one significant figure, two significant figures, and 3 significant figures. When we are expressing 2014 to one significant figure, it means that we are rounding off to the nearest thousands. And when you round 14 to the nearest thousands, it is almost nothing. So we remain with 2000. And in 2000, we are only considering 2 as the significant figures. The other zeros are not considered in this case. Still, we can round off, we can express 2014 collected to two significant figures. But when we are collecting to two significant figures, this time we shall be forced to consider one of the zeros, because if you try to round off 14 to the nearest hundreds, still cannot change anything because it is far lower than 100. So this time we shall have 2000, but taking the one of the zeros to make it two significant figures. And this is because we've said that the trailing zeros can be either be considered or not. In part C, we are supposed to express the same number to 3 significant figures. This is obvious because we are rounding off 4 to the nearest tens, which gives us 2010, and we are not considering the last figure, so we are taking 201 as the 3 significant figures. Hope it is clear. Still to continue, we are told that in a decimal, zeros before the first non-digit, the non-zero digit, are not significant. For instance, when we have 0.00609, the first zeros, the first 2 zeros after decimal are not considered to be significant. So in that we shall have 3 significant figures, that is 609. And we are told to express this to 1 significant figure, meaning we are rounding off to the nearest hundreds, which remains us with 0.006. That is 1 significant figure, because we are not considering the first 2 zeros after decimal point. We can still write the same figure to 2 significant figures, that is if we are rounding off the 9 to the nearest tens, to give us 0.0061, and in that our significant figures are 6 and 1. Then another category, we are told that in a decimal, the zeros after the last non-zero digit are significant. In a decimal, the other one was in a whole number, but this time in a decimal. For instance, if we have 0.30, we shall have 2 significant figures, the 3 and the 0. Hope I'm got clearly. In a decimal, the trailing 0 is considered to be significant. Let's take examples. We are supposed to express 2.0367 to 3 significant figures. So they are calling us to round off to the nearest hundreds, whereby the 6 rounds off to change the 3 to 4. So we shall have 2.04 as our figure that gives us the 3 significant figures. And this 0 is considered because it is between the non-zero digits. Don't forget that. In part B, we are supposed to express 0.2203 to 4 significant figures. That means that we shall round off the 3 to the nearest tens, thus giving us 0.2220. Therefore, those are 4 significant figures. We are considering the last 0 as significant because it is a principle that in a decimal, the last 0 should be considered significant.